that allows us to get right in the middle of that process.
How?
By taking over the creating part. Now, this is where I need you. You create the world of the dream. We bring the subject into that dream, and they fill it with their subconscious.
Christopher Nolan's Inception is a science fiction heist film where a crew of master thieves break into the mind of a rich kid and use dreams to plant the idea of him selling off his dead dad's company. But what if I told you that this rich kid isn't the only one whose mind is being broken into, that the movie itself also breaks into someone else's mind and uses dreams to plant a very specific idea of what it is, your mind. The thing you need to understand about Inception is that it made over $800 million at the box office, which makes it very out of the ordinary. Not just because it made over $800 million at the box office, but more so because of the way it did that. See, it's not a new entry in an already established franchise. It's not based on a book or any widely known historical event. It's not a Pixar animation. It wasn't marketed as the pioneer of new hella-lit theater technology. It's an entirely new original IP standalone movie that could sell itself to you only as what it is. And to be clear, what it is isn't by any means a perfect film without any flaws, far from it. For example, you know how recently we've talked quite a bit about the excess of exposition and how it can ruin movies. Well, in Inception, not only is there a problem of exposition excess, but it even gets to the point where one of the main characters' only real purpose for existing is to ask questions just so that the answers can then be explained to the audience.
Who are the people? Yours? How else do you do it? What happens when you start messing with the physics? Why are they all looking at me? Like they're gonna attack us?
You gotta draw from stuff you know, right? Why not? Is that what happened to you? Is that why you need me to build your dreams?
Round 2.
What kind of tricks? How big do these levels have to be?
Cobb can't build anymore, can he?
Why? His ex-wife?
They're still together.
But despite all this, despite not being able to rely on an already established property, despite not being even nearly flawless, a movie so universally praised and loved that people were willing to go see it multiple times. And the question then obviously is, what does it do to achieve that? Well, altogether I do think this is simply an incredible movie with a lot to talk about. But the main point where I'm going with all this is this. The same way the story of Inception is about using dreams to plant an idea, Inception itself also uses very common aspects of dreams to plant the idea of impeccable quality in you. It's always wildly entertaining and exhilarating as opposed to ever becoming boring. It's always distinctly intriguingly special as opposed to ever becoming stale. And it's also highly emotionally memorable as opposed to forgettable. And so let's take a look at Inception and try to figure out the most central dream-related keys behind its success. Let's see why, even if your movie isn't specifically about dreams, you should still have it feature some of the most common aspects of dreams. The first thing you'll notice about dreams is that they never waste time getting to what their main point for existing is, but instead always begin right in the middle of it. And that's one of the most fundamental mentalities that Inception abides by.
You always wind up right in the middle of what's going on.
I guess, yeah.
So how did we end up here?
Well, we just came from the,
For example, look at the first full opening sequence of the movie where the main point is our heroes Cobb and Arthur stealing this guy Sado's most precious subconscious secret. You remember how Cobb and Arthur arrive at this lavish party, how they first mingle with the other guests. You remember how they prepare for their meeting with Sado, where we then finally establish the reason we're here. Well, of course you don't, because that never happens. Because before we even fully know where we are, the reason we're there is already underway.
This is a dream and you have a safe full of secrets. I need to know what's in that safe.
We're already finding out that Sado has a subconscious secret worth stealing. We're already heading out to steal it. We're already seeing that something is very wrong, that there's a reality above with a massive riot going on. We're already affected down here by what's going on up there. Things aren't about to begin. Things aren't beginning to happen. They are already happening right now.
What are you doing? It's too soon!
I know, but the dream's collapsing. Try to keep Sato under a little bit longer. We're almost there.
And the result is one of the most thrilling opening sequences of all time, one that guarantees that there's not a single person left in the audience who isn't now at least somewhat excited to watch the rest of the movie. And to be clear, you still have to do the work. You still have to do things like setting up characters and motivations and status quos before the inciting incident break into the main plot, for example.
When are you coming home, Dad?
Well, I can't, sweetheart. I can't. Not for a while, remember?
Why?
Hey, Mr. Cobb. How would you like to go home?
But that being said, you also have to be able to identify the core point behind your scenes and sequences and then cut out all the non-crucial fat surrounding it. Because that core point of something occurring is where the thrills and the entertainment come from. In here, some of the most exciting moments are always those when we enter a new dream level, where we're basically thrust right in the middle of a new, clearly stated situation with massive anticipation as to how it will all unfold. In the first dream level, we're already kidnapping the rich kid Fisher and having to deal with his armed security. In the second level, we're already manipulating Fisher to join our team, all while the surroundings are being affected by the gravity of the car chase above.
Distractors tried to pull you into a dream, and I believe that's what's going on right now, Mr. Fisher.
Can you get me out here?
Right away.
In the third level, we're already on our way to break into this military base that holds Fisher's deepest new idea.
Cobb, what's down there?
Really, the truth we want Fisher to learn.
But in addition to creating excitement, the purpose of beginning with things already underway is also to eliminate boredom, by eliminating any extra unnecessary material the audience would otherwise have to sit through just to get to what they came for. For example, before we actually dive into Fisher's mind, it is important for us to first see him in person with his dad, to prevent both of them from being just people we talk about.
We can't work based solely on rumor, can we?
And to organically do that, the movie has Eames infiltrate Fisher's legal team. But instead of us having to sit through any extraneous things like job applications and interviews leading up to that moment, we're then just in the moment. Eames is already in the legal room. We're already seeing Fisher and the type of relationship he has with his dad. We're already getting what we know we're here for, without us first having to suffer through anything else to get to it.
I put it beside his bed. He hasn't even noticed.
But be also aware, you still need to connect your new scene to the previous with a clear enough motivation and reason for us being there, because otherwise...
It's the fastest way to travel to Egypt.
Why are we in Egypt?
Shut up.
Look, if your sequence is all about showcasing the anxiety-filled tension of crossing the US-Mexican border with a high-value target, then by all means let that play out. But if your sequence is solely about stealing someone's subconscious secret, there's no reason to begin with anything else than that. Your movie shouldn't have any filler before getting to the real main feeling. It's usually more important for us to know and experience the reason we are somewhere before we even fully know where it is we are. Because things happening, that's excitement. That's entertainment. But before we move on to the next point, it's time for us to first resolve this issue here and now, okay? You guys keep hammering me with these obsessive questions about my editing, how I edit, what I edit with, how you can edit videos about movies like me. But it's like I've been trying to say this whole time. The super high quality professional editing work you find in my content, such as and that's a result of hundreds of years of practice, impossible to be replicated by anyone else. Or it used to be. See, just like you asked, I found it. I finally found a way you can learn to create these amazing high-quality classic Filmento edits. My one excruciating scene, Ally at Arms, Skillshare. At Skillshare, you'll find an infinite amount of educational courses and classes on everything, including editing, no matter your personal editing software of choice. For Vegas Pro, for example, which I use, one of the best courses to start with is this one, hosted by the one and only Batista, who goes through all the basics you need to know when using Vegas. A premium Skillshare membership costs you $8 a month, but just like you asked for, I got you that secret link that will give you a free trial to try all this stuff out with. I hid it down in the description. So go check those courses out, start editing your own content today, help this channel out in the process. That was your whole idea, right? That's what you wanted. But now, back to it. The next thing you'll notice about dreams is that they're never bound by rules of reality in terms of what's happening or where, but instead continuously jump between very varied, distinctly different sets of locations and situations, which is something Inception might do better than any other movie. First of all, this film is a masterclass in how to spend your budget in terms of location aesthetics. We go from choppers to trains, from Asian landscape to European architecture, from Paris to Mombasa, from sun to rain to snow. We go so many aesthetically distinct places that regardless of what actually happens in those places, it's pretty much guaranteed that the visual side of it never becomes repetitive or stale. But the thing is, most other movies don't have budgets of 160 million, and so most other movies can't just go filming all around the globe. And in that case, what you need to focus exclusively on is crafting that sense of varied distinctive difference in terms of your situations, which again, I'd say Inception might also do better than pretty much all other movies. Wherever we are and whatever we're doing, this movie always puts in the effort to add in that one extra distinctive layer on top to make it special. When we're in Paris being spoon-fed exposition, we're also seeing the world get manipulated in such spectacular ways that we're too intrigued to even really notice that we're being spoon-fed exposition. When we're in the midst of a downtown car chase shootout, we're suddenly hammered by a freight train out of nowhere to definitively differentiate this car chase shootout from others. When we're engaging in a hotel fight scene, the hallway begins rotating due to the gravity shifts in the upper level, making this hotel fight scene unlike any other we've ever seen. Anything we do, there's usually always something that makes that specific place or situation uniquely special to ensure that we're always amazed and immersed and invested in what we're seeing. So much so that after seeing it, it just makes us wanna go see it again. And I know you can say that, well, Inception can do that just because all the dream stuff makes it possible, which is true, which is why I always stress the importance of finding a truly special concept and exploiting the specialty of that concept in a way that only it allows for. And if you haven't been doing that, then there's really just one lesson for you to learn.
You mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling.
But even if you have a smaller budget that prevents you from going to visually distinct places, as well as a weak concept that prevents you from doing anything too out of the ordinary, there is still one thing you can do to protect your movie from becoming repetitive and stale. Whatever happens in it, just make sure that the way it happens is different from last time. For example, in here we have two big firefight sequences, the downtown shootout and the mountain base shootout, which at their core are the same thing. But in addition to variety just in terms of location aesthetics and out-of-control trains, there's also very fundamental differences in how they play out. In the downtown sequence, we are kidnapping Fisher, whereas in the mountain-based sequence, Fisher is our ally, meaning that the relationship dynamics are different. Downtown, we still think that dying will make us wake up, whereas at the mountain base we know that death tosses us into limbo forever, meaning that the stakes are different. In one sequence, we are escaping our opponents. In the other sequence, we are attacking and infiltrating our opponent's base, meaning that the whole fundamental purpose is different. As in, same in theory, but not so much in practice. Just like in dreams, in movies you are limited only by your imagination and how much it is able to bend the rules of reality. If you want to repeat scenes and situations, if you want to copy stuff from other movies, that's fine. But at least make sure all of it always plays out in a new way. Because repetition and feeling stale, that's a sure one-way ticket to cinematic limbo.
Never recreate places from your memory. Always imagine new places.
I mean, you gotta draw from stuff you know, right?
Only use details, a street lamp or a phone booth, never entire areas.
Why not?
Thirdly, no matter what actually happens in our dreams or in what way, we only really ever remember them through some very specific, often very obscure key bits of information. And while dreams never make any sense overall, what Inception shows is that if you are able to connect these obscure bits of information into your story and have it all make sense, there's a massive amount of inherent emotional memorability assigned to them for you to mine. Essentially, what I mean here is that upon watching this movie, you'll notice that it features quite a big bunch of very weird, very offhand offhandedly specific items and ideas and habits that, while mean nothing in of themselves, ultimately end up carrying huge amounts of meaningful importance. For example, one recurring idea is these personalized totems that each of our heroes carries with them at all times so that they can always check to make sure if they're still dreaming or not.
I can't let you touch it, that would defeat the purpose. See, only I know the balance and the weight of this particular loaded die. That way, when you look at your totem, you know beyond a doubt that you're not in someone else's dream.
The most prominent one of these totems being the spinning top that Cobb has left from his dead wife, Mal, which we see again and again and again and again. So in of itself, the spinning top is just a spinning top and means nothing, but throughout the story, it gradually starts inheriting meaning. For one, since we learned that the spinning top is specifically meant to signal dreams, we subconsciously begin associating it and others like it with dreams, and therefore this movie altogether. But more than that, it also starts inheriting emotional value, in this case, sadness.
But I never knew that idea would grow in her mind like a cancer, that even after she woke, that you continue to believe your world wasn't real. That death was the only escape.
Oh no! Jesus Christ!
Basically, it's the infinitely spinning top that plants the inescapable idea in Mal's head that her reality is not real, which ultimately leads her to take her own life. And in the exact same way, it's the spinning top that subconsciously plants an emotional sense of melancholy and depression in our heads, because from now on, it always reminds us of non-reality and the ramifications of that. Suddenly, when you see a spinning top even outside this movie, it's no longer just a spinning top, but instead an emotional reminder of what it means. Or if you think I'm getting way too pretentious with this, at the very least it will remind you of Inception, guaranteed. Because for you, Inception now owns it. And there's a handful of stuff like that in here. We have the kick of falling backwards into water, we have the silver suitcase full of medical tubes, the infinite staircase, the whole concept of dreams within dreams. I mean, we even have the stuff we talked about before. The revolving hallway, the train in the middle of the city, and so on and so on. All of these very specific entities are now owned by Inception, like mental real estate, ideas it has permanently burned into your brain.
You been in there? No. It's a mind. You get in there, it's it's like the movie Inception.
And if you personally don't believe in assigning meaning and emotion like so, consider this. You can do it with music. You can do it with sound. You can do it with specific lines of dialogue. So why couldn't you do it with anything, so long as it's something nothing else has yet made its own? I mean, I'd argue that even the most post-2010 movie trailers, for example, remind you of Inception in some capacity, because they always tend to feature some kind of variation of that classic Inception horn that became such a prominent part of movie culture. So essentially what I'm getting at is this. Whatever your movie is, wherever it takes place, you should always try to find some meaningless, offhandedly specific item or idea or habit or anything that you can claim as your own. Like a blank canvas existing in our world and culture that you paint your own movie on. Because that's the thing that will help your movie fight forgettability that so often destroys so many others. That's the thing that will make people carry your movie anywhere they go. At least as a subconscious half-remembered dream. Because basically it's like, oh hey, it's that thing. The thing that reminds me of that movie. Maybe I should see it again.